Pop Culture Pastor.
All right. Well, here we are. Good afternoon. My name is Dave. Kane's here.
Hello.
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 You're like the Kiwi version of, so my grandmother, who was a lot like Mrs. Doubtfire.
Mm-hmm.
We every time she would walk around, we'd be like, hello, like that. You've got the Kiwi version, which is hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Or I could put on an alter ego from my YouTube channel, the News Brick, who's like a British news presenter.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah, well, however you say hi. What is the American version of that? Is it howdy? Howdy. Is that it? Even though most Americans don't talk like that, but
that's probably the world's perception of how Americans say hello to each other.
I feel like most people out in the world, if they're not well versed in Americana, they just think we're all cowboys.
Yeah. Well, howdy there.
Yeah, chewing on a weed, just some random plant coming out of our mouth, straw hat,
a wheat stalk,
or a cowboy hat. Yeah. Anyways, however you say hello, welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor on KFEX Firescape Radio 93.1. Cody, let me ask you a question. If someone were to give you a brand new Tesla today, like one of the fancy ones that have self-driving, would that be something you're comfortable with? Like being self-drove around? Like not having control of the car, just relinquishing control. Because I find the older you are, the more likely you are to say, no, I wouldn't be able to do that. But you're a millennial.
Okay. Like part of my dream would be to be like Miss Daisy and be chauffeured around.
That went a weird direction.
It did. Although, like... I've seen the Tesla self-driving fails in like the semis that are self-driving in like those failures, and so I'd be really hesitant. But if I'm just going around Chanute, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, but see, then you wouldn't need it because I see like that. The self-driving thing seems a lot more useful on the longer the trip.
Yeah, but like I think you, especially if it's a Tesla, you're going to have to recharge it.
Yeah, so my cousin has a Tesla and I recently got to ride in it. So and she explained it to me a little bit. So cuz I had very little understanding of what actually a Tesla would entail. So let's say I was driving to Denver.
Been there. Done that.
I would have to stop twice to recharge my battery in between here in Denver. Now, the cool thing is the big computer screen they got in there will tell you where all the recharging stations are. And most towns of any size have them. Chanute even has a couple. Did you know that?
I knew that, and then I was surprised to learn that Humboldt did not have one.
Yeah. Why were you surprised about that?
Because I've known people in Humboldt that own Teslas, and I figured that.
Well, I'm seeing more and more electric vehicles. I saw like one of those weird trucks I think they're called Rivians.
Oh.
I saw one of those a couple weeks ago, and that's a brand new company. But back to the recharging places, you have to. So the computer tells you where some chargers are better than others. So like there's some chargers that have a much quicker way of charging. So on her computer, when we were mapping out our fake trip to Denver, we would have to stop in, I think it was Hutchinson, maybe.
Okay.
It might have been farther than that. Maybe it was Salina.
I was going to say Salina or Hayes.
Yeah, Salina, I think, was the first stop, and it would take like 20 minutes to charge there. And then maybe it was Hayes was the next one. There were two stops, and they were both 20 minutes, and those are like superchargers. Now, the one most people have in their garages, if they're not super rich, is not a supercharger. Like it'd take like something like 10 to 12 hours for a full charge.
That's not too bad.
No, because apparently the one that's like the supercharger one's pretty expensive. Anyways, I'm only bringing this up wondering how where you were at with a self-driving car, because it's already moving forward technology-wise and things to do for the person who's now not driving. And
Napping.
one of those is for one of these companies is focusing on gaming.
This sounds dangerous.
So it almost seems inevitable that we would get around to this, because now that the technology is going this way and you have people buying electric cars, that means there's going to be competitors. They're going to be trying to come up with their own thing. The industry is sort of, you can tell, is kind of moving this way. Companies are trying to attract customers. It'll be a competitive market. And so sooner or later, we knew it would be beyond the visual appeal of a car. The joy of being in the driver's seat like a sports car. Mm-hmm. Some designers are focusing their attention on in-car experience, which is especially the case with electric vehicles, because of the time you have to sit around waiting for charging and things like that. It's just a different car experience. So naturally, one company has entered this space called InDream. It's a Swiss startup.
Oh, the Swiss.
They're behind something called the Air Console game platform. I've never heard of that. I'm not a gamer, though.
That's made up.
I mean, it's not the Xbox. The InDream doesn't sound, it sounds fake. The Air Console by InDream. But they were inspired to create an in-car gaming experience after CEO Anthony Klikwat saw people playing games on their phone despite a big screen in front of them while charging their electric vehicles. So the company recently announced a partnership with BMW to bring Air Console and thousands of games to the company's car dashboard screens. Yeah, this sounds dangerous.
And the more juice you're using, the shorter distance you'll go.
Well, I'm assuming, like, how much juice could a video game use
I know
when it comes to car batteries?
I just know that, like, for gasoline, if you shut off your heater or air conditioner in the car, it helps with the fuel economy quite a bit.
Yeah.
I would assume that the screen, depending on the brightness, depending on the memory and all that jazz, I mean...
You just see people, like, all the tricks people use when their phone is like less than 10%. Now turn the screen brightness way down.
Yeah.
Like till we can barely see it. And turn off all notifications. I couldn't get a hold of you. Why weren't you answering your phone? It's like, well, because my battery was low. Well, then what's the point of having a phone?
Well, it was good when it was fully charged.
So you were not down with the video gaming in car.
So my friend Greta, she's all about saving the world.
Oh.
And I think that if it affects the fuel economy or the battery economy any bit, that it's then counterproductive to the whole electric craze. And so knock it off.
I mean, this is where we're going is full automation, right? Yeah. Where everything will be automated. It'll just be like getting on a carnival ride. We won't actually drive anymore. We'll get in, our unit will be plugged into the entire system, and it's just all automated. And just like carnival rides, there'll still be roller coasters, there'll still be accidents. We're humans, so there's always going to be errors. But like, I think that's where we're headed, where there'll be no more speeding.
It would be nice in Eureka Springs. Those roads are narrow and dangerous.
Well, it's the Ozarks.
Indeed.
So when you think of that, do you think it'll ever fully go to that? Because that's, I think, where we're headed is full automation, where you don't actually get to drive anymore. You won't have the choice. It won't be until after my generation dies off. Anybody that can remember a time before like internet and that sort of technology, we won't trust it because we grew up with movies like The Terminator.
I was going to say, I've seen The Terminator and I've seen all the Transformers. What if there's some Decepticons out there?
We're like, no, ain't no machine will drive for me. I'll be back. No, you can't. You wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to hand it over. But sooner or later, like the younger generations will go for this, won't they?
Oh yeah.
Like, and it's weird, and there seems to be pros and cons of it. Like a pro would be, people over a certain age can become a danger on the roads because their
Very much
reflexes and their reaction times get slower, and like we all have different driving ability. Like there is a
Mario Andretti Jr. right here.
no. Well, I tell my kids I'm the best driver ever. And I don't have any way I can measure that other than I've never been a part of an accident.
Way to go.
That was my fault. As far as you know.
I do really well on Mario Kart.
I was pretty good at the Wii Mario Kart. I got really good at that.
Wii Mario Kart and 64 Mario Kart. They're my jams.
So video games in the future, driving games will just drive themselves. You won't actually get to play them because they won't understand the concept. They'll be like, oh, people used to actually operate these big machines?
Oh, I mean, think about the cars that like the 1920s and 30s, like those big tanks.
Well, not that far back.
Well, 40s and 50s.
It was more like the 50s and 60s when they were getting boat size.
Yeah, like 60s, they started to, at the end, started to decrease in size. But, I mean, some of the older ones look like hearses.
They were all super heavy, that's for sure. So, story time.
I love stories.
You do?
I do.
And this one's about me.
Oh, even better.
Childhood Dave story time.
All right.
There was I guess it's fast food, but I don't know if it qualifies. We can decide that later. But there was a place that young Dave got more excited to go to than even like McDonald's. Like, because, it was special. We didn't get to go out a lot when I was a kid to get out food. And McDonald's was like a kind of a once a month or two treat. And
Yeah.
I'd get a Happy Meal, of course.
Yeah.
But there was one other place that sparked my imagination, and I love the food. And it was even more exciting for a young Dave because the restaurant itself was kind of set up in this way to kind of get lost in the imagination of a child.
Chuck E. Cheese.
No. That's too obvious. No. So we didn't have a Chuck E. Cheese in Topeka when I was little. It was Showbiz Pizza,
Yeah.
which was sort of the precursor to
Right.
Charles
I remember
Entertainment Cheese.
Showbiz. Yeah.
And I like using Charles Entertainment Cheese's full name, his full Christian name, as Christian as a rat can be, that plays music and makes pizza. But there was a place that my mom would take me that I loved going to because it had a pirate theme, and even the front of it was like a dock. Like they went all in on like the kind of the outer look and feel of the restaurant. So like it had like a wood dock front area where you would go to the front door, and the inside had all this pirate stuff. And of course I'm talking about
Long John Silver's.
Long John Silver's. And man, I enjoyed that kind of feel. It kind of appealed to me as a kid, the pirate stuff. And of course, I just like the food at Long John Silver's. And what I want to say is, as we're in Lent now, so everyone's got their fish stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Is everyone's got their fish choice for you if you practice Lent, and what is that about? Is that like you give up meat? I'm not really sure of the rules.
I think
Red meat.
You have like on Fridays or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the rules.
Yeah, so this is a double whammy for me because I'm not in whatever, denomination or, corner of Christianity that does this. Plus I didn't grow up in the church, so I have like no background for Lent other than, I should give up something, right?
Right.
It's like, it's all about,
Sacrificing during
yeah.
that time.
right.
Yeah.
and not belly button lint. That's not what it's about.
Gross. Too far.
Too far. Anyways, so I was thinking about Long John Silver's, and I found some troubling news because what I'd noticed is there just aren't as many of them around these days.
It's true. I have a really great Long John Silver story too, actually.
Oh, okay. Do you want to tell that when we come back?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll let you tell your Long John Silver
Okay.
story when we
Okay.
come back. That it's really great. Now it's building up in my mind. Like, what could this possibly be? We'll find out together. So I don't know why. Probably because of Lent and everyone's got their fish options. But every time this happens, I start thinking about Long John Silver's. It's almost like a once a year kind of thing. That Lent just naturally goes along with me thinking about Long John Silver's, which is good and it's normal because Long John Silver's is one of those places where you about once a year go, wow, I wish we had one around because that sounds really good. And then when you do find one and eat at one, you think, man, this is great. I can't believe we don't eat this all the time. And then about a half an hour later, you remember why it had been a year since you thought about it because your stomach starts to hurt a little bit. To me, totally worth it. It's totally worth it. I'm like, yeah, my stomach hurts a little bit, but it was worth it. But you said you had a story about
I do.
Long
I have
John
a
Silver's.
really great story about Long John Silver's, and it's something that I don't think I will ever forget. So when I was probably about 10, my grandma took me to Kansas City for my birthday. And I was able to pick wherever I wanted to eat. And so 10-year-old me chooses Long John Silver's.
Of course, yeah.
So we eat at Long John Silver's, and then we went and I don't even remember what else we did. That's not the important part. But as the course of the day went on, my grandma realized that she used to wear like her own wedding ring, but she also wore her mother and father's wedding ring.
Oh, wow.
And so she realizes that she has lost her mother and father's wedding rings.
Oh, no.
So we retrace our steps throughout the entire day looking, and finally we're thinking we must have lost it at the restaurant. So we go back to Long John Silver's.
Oh, no.
And we're asking them if they've seen them, if they've come across any rings. And this whole story is so crazy to me now that we actually did this. They were like, no, but if you want to look through the trash cans, you can. So my grandmother and I dug through Long John Silver's garbage bags. And then after 30 minutes of that, my grandma, bless her heart, my sweet, sweet grandma, we went to the bathroom to wash our hands, right? After that.
Right.
My dear, beloved, sweet grandmother goes to the restroom and she just starts laughing. She found those rings in her pantyhose.
What?
Yeah, this is a true story.
Did she apologize for you digging in Long John Silver's
I do
trash?
think she apologized.
And when she said, I'm sorry, did you say, well, sorry's not going to take the malt vinegar smell off my hands, Grandma?
I love malt vinegar. So.
Yeah. That's off. I cannot. There are a few fast food restaurants where that sounds like even remotely something I'd want to do, but I can't think of a worse place to have to dig through the trash than Long John Silver's.
Well, I think it was both traumatizing and hilarious I will never forget that story. And my grandma, that was so funny.
Maybe Taco Bell. That's a poll we should run. What's the worst restaurant trash you could honestly think of that you would have to dig through for something you lost? Oh man, rough. So I had mentioned previously, Danielle, that Long John Silver's was one of my favorite restaurants when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I also mentioned that it seems like there's less of them. Like a bunch of them were closing.
Yeah.
We used to have a few within an hour or two of where we live. Mm-hmm. And if we were going to that particular town or whatever, I might want to stop once a year. Because as we mentioned
was it
before.
Columbus, I think. We used to.
Pittsburgh had one, and it closed. Well, I found out that wasn't, we weren't just imagining that. Back in 1979, Long John Silver's had over 1,500 locations in the United States. They are now down to just under 600.
Oh, that's
Just
a big
under
cut.
600 locations, with a large concentration in Texas, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, where the chain is based. I didn't know that. I didn't know it started in Kentucky, but they did it as a try to, well, they were losing money apparently. And so they did it to try and concentrate it in certain areas where people would, like if you had one that closed down in your area, it conceivably would make you want it more when you were in the other areas, right? Like, oh, I miss this place. When your brain thinks that, and then your stomach thinks that, and then your brain's like, no, you don't. You don't miss it.
I'm sitting on this joke, though. I got to say it. Were they losing money hand over fish?
Ah!
Sorry, I couldn't hold it in any longer.
That was a dad joke.
I know. I'm really good at dad jokes.
Yeah, I've been, ever since we started talking about Long John Silver's, I've been thinking about the idea of how, the Long John Silver's marketing itself would always be like, come fishing for your meal. And, if you went with Jesus, he'd be like, now I will make you fishers of men. And then like, will we be battering them or no? That's a weird joke.
That is a weird joke.
Anyways,
Disturbing.
I do have
slightly.
this. I do have this love and nostalgic feelings for the old Long John Silver's, where they had like the dock as the front steps where you'd walk up to the door. They even had like, I think the door handles were like the old pirate swords. So they didn't have regular
Yeah,
door
I
handles.
remember
They were
that,
like
yeah.
an actual
Yeah.
pirate sword. And I dug their commitment to the gimmick.
The ambiance.
Yeah. And I think, if I remember right, you could even get like, so you know how Burger King has the paper crowns?
They had like
They had
hats.
pirate hats,
Yeah,
yeah.
for the kids. Yeah.
I missed that. Can we go to Long John Silver's and so I can get one of the pirate hats?
I don't think there are any close to us, so no.
Well, we'll just have to make a road trip, a pop culture pastor road trip to Long John Silver's. Maybe we'll have one where it's a Long John Silver's and Taco Bell all in one.
No thanks.
All right, Kane, this is kind of amazing. I just found this random story. And I don't know why we're going to end up talking about food a lot today, because sometimes that happens. But this particular isn't about the food specifically. It's about this restaurant, Nettie's House of Spaghetti
Okay.
in Tinton Falls, New Jersey. Okay. Now, first of all, Nettie's House of Spaghetti sounds like a wonderland.
Nettie Spaghetti.
Yeah, right? This sounds like, and who loves spaghetti more than kids? Kids love spaghetti. But kids won't be getting Nettie's spaghetti.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, get this. We love kids. We really, truly do. That's how a social media post put out by Nettie's House of Spaghetti in Tinton Falls, New Jersey starts. But despite that, kids are no longer welcome at their restaurant.
Oh, goodness. me.
Quote, between noise levels, lack of space for high chairs, cleaning up crazy messes, and the liability of kids running around the restaurant, we have decided to take control of the situation. This is a post from very recently. Starting March 8th, the restaurant will no longer allow any children under 10 in its dining room.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Like, on one hand, I'm kind of like, yeah, I get it. I see it. We live in a day and age where times are just different, man. Like, parents back in the 50s and 60s, man, they had more of an iron grip on their kids. And like society does, we designated things that like went over the line and things that were probably not good about that. And then we went the other direction. And now we got to start sensing and seeing what we did wrong in that. Because now we're in the other direction. And like, look, I've been in restaurants where kids were out of control. And so I get it, but like, isn't having a restaurant kind of being understanding that you're going to have situations like that? And that what happened to the customer is always right, first of all. Is that not a thing anymore? Because did the customer just become too out of control?
Maybe.
Because that's not a thing I know, like in your fast food type places. So just to give you an example, I flipped burgers in high school at a burger joint, and we had a stack of cards next to every register that were for a free burger on your next trip. And our instructions were to take it upon ourselves at any time a customer had a complaint or we made a mistake, was to say, hey, I'm very sorry. Please accept this gift of a free hamburger the next time you come in. And that was just understood. We were just supposed to do that. Now that doesn't ever happen. Like they'll, if you bring up a mistake at a fast food joint now, they'll recognize it and they'll fix your order. But half the time you won't even get a "we're sorry." And if you do, then, put it in your pocket and treasure it. Cause that doesn't happen very much. So times have changed. And what do you think about that? It seems weird for Nettie's House of Spaghetti to say no kids.
Yeah, it does seem a little weird, but you can. Does it say if it's a chain or is it just a one-off?
I think it's just a locally owned restaurant.
Which I can kind of see where they're coming from. They want to create a certain environment in their restaurant. They want to maybe raise the bar a little bit, but I can kind of see the other side as well. Like, hang on, just you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit there.
Right. I need to know more about the restaurant because clearly they're an Italian food place. So are they trying to be upscale? And if they are, then why do they still call themselves Nettie's House of Spaghetti? Because that does not say upscale to me.
No.
But yeah, like it's interesting. I feel like we need more information. Now, most of the internet did not need more information, as you could guess.
I can imagine there is some significant blowback from the internet.
The internet has thoughts on Nettie's House of Spaghetti and their new no kids rule. And people that probably will never go to Nettie's House of Spaghetti. Here's the thing. This Nettie's House of Spaghetti in New Jersey, which sounds like just kind of a local family-owned Italian restaurant. They put out a Facebook post, social media post that said, here's the thing. We're not letting kids in anymore. Because basically they just said they didn't want to deal with it. It's too much noise, too much mess. We don't have the personnel to deal with it anymore. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. But I am not most people. As you might guess, Kane, it struck a nerve.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
The announcement, which got plenty of news coverage, also got a lot of reactions on social media. On Instagram, close to 3,500 people have commented since the announcement was made on February 9th. Can I tell you, they probably don't have that many followers.
Yeah.
They probably, what are we guessing for a town with a small family restaurant? Like, what are we guessing? They have 1,000 followers at most?
Yeah.
And this has 3,500 comments. Perhaps not surprisingly, people have been pretty vocal on both sides of, is this the right thing to do? Kind of question. Here's a quote. Imagine if more establishments started doing the same. That's just awful. Children are a part of the family unit. They are our future. I would never patronize a restaurant that wouldn't allow children. I wish you luck, but don't be surprised if it affects your bottom line. At least they were nice about it. Also, I believe the children are our future, and let them lead the way. Like, that was a nice trope.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not wrong. I just like it when people say that out loud.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, all right, Dionne Warwick, settle down. We all understand that children are the future. Here's another comment. This isn't just about high chairs, strollers, or screaming kids, wrote another user, defending the restaurant's decision. When parents let their kids run wild in a restaurant with servers carrying heavy and hot trays of food, it becomes a huge liability for the restaurant, the staff, and the guests. I applaud this restaurant for taking a stand by being a trailblazer in the service industry. Now, does that happen a lot? Do runaway kids knock into servers and force them to spill hot food on people? Is that something that happens a lot? I feel like that's worst case scenario.
Possibly. But then again, it depends on the establishment. I guess it depends on what a typical Tuesday night looks like. Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. Other supporters were in favor of the decision, not because of the liability stuff, but rather the whole oasis of peace angle, which is something they had in their post. Several people even said they'd add the restaurant to their must-try list simply because of the new policy, which, I could see that.
Yeah.
Some people don't like kids. I think they need, like, their heart warmed up a little bit. But one commenter said, I love this. Nothing is worse than wanting a quiet dinner out and some kid is screaming the parents aren't doing anything. It's so disrespectful. Again, I understand that, but I wouldn't say that out loud. You just seem like you don't like kids, which they're kids, right? I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've been at the Walmart or somewhere else where kids acting crazy. But like, I think you have to work past this, the whole annoyance, the judgment angle. Like, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. But it really does speak to being a byproduct of society today, where a lot of parents, it seems, just kind of don't really care, and they just leave their kids to just run wild, and they don't hold their kids accountable.
Yeah. Well, because let me tell you what's getting lost here in our current culture where we're all about equality. That's the thing, right? We're all about equality. We all agree segregation is bad. This is technically segregation.
Yeah, it is.
You're making a restaurant where certain humans can't come in. You're just changing. It's not the same dividing line. So in the South, in the, before the 60s, it was black people can't come in here. I mean, you're still making a weird dividing line by saying, oh, this is a restaurant, but not for kids. Kids can't come in here. Oh, I'm sorry. Are they not human? I mean, I know there are different details, but it's still the same thing. You're still drawing a line through humanity and saying those people can't come in here. Isn't that true?
To a point. But
I know it's different.
Yeah. But then you wouldn't allow children in an R-rated movie.
True. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's weird given the current state of our culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
The current state of our culture being everybody's equal. Everybody's free to do what we say they should be able to do, and not to do the things we say they shouldn't do. We have this weird idea of freedom and equality. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And for some reason, for some people, it doesn't translate to kids. For some people, it translates to kids too much. Like, I think that's why we're in this situation, because, look, I've run into people who parent no, I don't tell my kid what to eat. And I've actually had a conversation with someone I know who said that, they let their kid eat desserts, cookies, brownies, whenever they want. And I said, yeah, but they said their body knows what they need. And I was just like, okay, yeah, their body knows what they need, but sometimes you just want 12 cookies before dinner. And they're like, well, who am I to tell them? I'm like, well, you're the parent. Yeah. And the funny end of that story is that kid ended up needed dental surgery at the age of, 10. And I think that happens a lot now. But there's this weird thing we do now where we're like, oh, the kids are more autonomous because of freedom, because of this. It's a weird pendulum. It's a weird pendulum. And so this restaurant's kind of in the center of it. Nettie's House of Spaghetti is in the cultural center of this conversation. Yeah. And they made a drastic move.
They did.
Pretty drastic.
It is.
So the last thing I want to talk about with Nettie's House of Spaghetti in New Jersey that banned kids under 10 from their restaurant is, okay, well, let's go along with it. Let's say, okay, I see what you're trying to do. It's your restaurant. You can do whatever you want. So that's what I'm a big proponent of. Like, hey, it's your business. Run it the way you want to run it. I know we have certain rules to stop segregative behavior that have to be followed. And it's up to someone smarter than me to figure out if this is that or if we're allowed to do that with children because of, an age-wise. Like you said, we wouldn't let a 9-year-old into an R-rated movie. So, we wouldn't let an 8-year-old buy alcohol. So, yeah, we definitely do things by age that are warranted. And so, okay, restaurant, okay, Nettie's House of Spaghetti, you're not letting in any kids under 10 into your restaurant. Question: how do you know and find out how old they are?
It's That's an interesting question. Because you've got to
do
ask.
that?
You've got to ask, right?
You can't card them at the door.
Yeah.
Can I see your library card for your child? We need to know. Like, what do you?
Some kids look older, and some kids look younger at 10. So
yeah.
it's
How
gonna,
do you do this?
It's always going to be an awkward conversation. A family comes in. I'm sorry, how old are your kids? I've got a 9.5-year-old. Sorry.
And now you're putting some poor 19-year-old, maitre d' or door person in an awkward position.
Yeah.
Of
true.
like, now, like I have to visually, what's the word I'm looking for? What do they claim cops do to minorities? What's the word? There's a word for it where they assume certain things.
Stereotype? No.
No. I can't think of the word right now. But you're putting a young person, probably a young employee, in the position of doing that to kids.
Yeah.
Trying to guess their age.
Yeah.
And then putting them in the awkward
Profile.
position of if it's even close, do they ask?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, we have a policy here. How old's your kid? Which, what if people are just randomly passing through and they see, like, because listen, I'm just being honest here. If I'm driving around and I'm going through New Jersey and I see Nettie's House of Spaghetti, that's an instant stop. Mm-hmm. I definitely want to eat there, but I have children under 10. So I just walk in randomly, have no idea. And then the young door person starts staring down my littlest kids. Like, how old is that one? He's 4.
Why do you need to know?
Yeah. It's like, well, we have a policy of no kids under 10. Now I'm mad because I really wanted Nettie's House of Spaghetti. Anyways, isn't that like, aren't you opening a can of worms that just is going to make it more complicated than just dealing with the kid?
Yeah, it definitely is a can of worms. That's for sure. That's for sure.
I'm trying to think of a place doing it around here, and like that would just not fly. First of all, that place would just get battered on social media. Well, much like this place probably. They're probably lucky that, being in New Jersey, I'm assuming this is a suburb or something, part of a bigger place where it's not so concentrated. Whereas we live in a town of 8,000 in Southeast Kansas, where it's like you're out in the middle of nowhere. Like if a restaurant did that here, the blowback would be severe, intense, and instantaneous.
Yeah. You might as well just close your doors right now.
You would not get away with it here. And it's an interesting conversation because I'm just not so sure that you could do it. And I do come from a different time too, where I'm like, the customer's always right. Oh, this customer has a kid that they're not controlling. Like, well, first of all, you can't ask. Like if a kid's causing problems, you can go up to him in a nice way and say, hey, we were just wondering, like, look, your kid is adorable, but we were wondering if you could, kind of put a lid on them a little bit, try to rein them back in a little bit because they're bothering some of the other customers. Would that be okay? I mean, there's ways you can ask that nicely.
Yeah.
And then they could always say no. And then like, look, at the end of the day, you're only having to deal with it for 45 minutes to an hour. And by the way, the customers that complain, you can give them a free burger card like we used to. Yeah. Hey, here's a card. We're sorry about the distraction. Here's a card for free Nettie spaghetti next time you come into Nettie's House of Spaghetti. Problem solved.
Yeah.
There are ways without banning children completely. Hey everybody, Dave here. What you have just listened to are bits and pieces of our radio show. We have a radio show on KFEX Firescape Radio located in Chanute, Kansas. You can hear that show from noon to 4 every weekday. So if you want to tune into that, you can go to www.kfex931.com, or you can search KFEX in your app store on your smartphone and find their totally free app there. If you're a fan of Christian music, you might like to listen to our live show when you're at work, or if you're a stay-at-home mom and you like music in the house, you may love to listen to that during the day. So give it a try. We would also direct you to our podcast, Pop Culture Pastor. That's probably why you're listening anyways to this version of what we do. As always, subscribe to the podcast, follow us on our social medias on Facebook and Twitter. It helps us out when you share it, when you review and rate us on our podcast homes. And of course, follow us on social media and share our stuff there. So thank you so much for listening. We love all of you guys so much. We have such a great community of listeners, and we'll see you when the regular pod drops on Friday.